Well, one thing is that we have to be patient and have to not give up. I believe same thing with politics, very similar to entrepreneurship. You have a passion for something, okay? And you commit yourself to it, right? I mean, I committed 30 years of my life and more than that, actually, before I get to the position I was in, you got to spend more time and never give up, right? That's the element of being successful entrepreneur. Passion, commit, don't give up.
Welcome to The Wild Show with your hosts, Will Chang, Lee Chang, and Andrew Su. Hi, this is Will Chang, and as always, I have my co-hosts Lee Chang and Andrew Su with me.
Good to be back. Hey, great to be here.
Today, we are joined by our friend Conrad Lee. Conrad is the former mayor of Bellevue, Washington from 2012 to 2013. He's been serving on the city council of Bellevue since 1994 and is Bellevue's first minority member of the city council and its longest continuous serving member. Conrad is not only the first Chinese-American mayor, but the first minority mayor of Bellevue. Bellevue is home to some of the world's largest technology companies, including Amazon, and has been rated one of the best places to live by CNN Money in USA Today. Welcome, Conrad.
Thank you.
So your story is actually quite incredible, and there's a lot to talk about, but I wanted to start from the beginning. Your story doesn't start in Bellevue, Washington, but instead it starts in China. You were born in Kunming, China. Your father was the aide to the warlord Long Yun. Can you talk a little bit about your childhood?
Yes. I was born, as you said, in China in 1939. And my grandfather's sister was married to Long Yun. And Long Yun, as you mentioned, is the warlord. And he's the most powerful person in the province of Yunnan. And it's interesting because at that time, it's just during the Second World War. Even before that, it's the Japanese invasion of China and all that was happening. And so, as you know, Yunnan being a very remote province, many of the land is controlled by local power. And local power basically comes from military. So that's why they call them warlords. And because of the marriage, my family was very instrumental in helping Long Yun to govern the province. And I was probably just a baby during the Second World War. And then we, as you probably know, the Japanese invasion went all the way towards southwest. They practically occupied the whole China. And they only left provinces Sichuan and Yunnan. And Sichuan was the wartime capital of the nationalist China. Of course, Chiang Kai-shek is the president of that time. And so there's a lot of political intrigue, the central government versus the local government, the power struggle, who's in control, who calls the shots. And so it's an interesting time. And during the Second World War, also toward the end, the American volunteer was under General Chennault as part of the American Army, a volunteer to go to China and fought the Japanese. And at that time, Air Force is part of the Army. So it became the Flying Tigers. All the people went there, and many Chinese Americans actually also enlisted. And they were either pilots or they are mechanics, and they do support. So China at that time was under siege. And the Flying Tigers were a big defender of the last of the Chinese land. So I was fortunate at that time because of Long Yun being the warlord. So he controls the province. And we had the occasion of working with a lot of American Flying Tigers and pilots and so on. And if you recall, one of the brothers, William Chen, and his, I think, father was in the Flying Tigers. So it's got a lot of history. We went back with China and U.S. We have a long history as friends working together. It's a real story. And also, being on the last remaining province of China, the Japanese were trying to take over the whole country. And then one of the route that is part of the supply going overseas from China is Burma Road, China, Yunnan to Burma. So we have General Stilwell, that Burma Road. And also that connects army, the military coming to China, reinforcing some of the last remaining provinces. So it's a lot of interesting stories. And after the war, it's becoming even more interesting. Chiang Kai-shek wanted to basically unify the country. And his power doesn't really go that far, to these provinces. At the same time, the Communist China, they fought the Japanese together during the war. But after the war, obviously, they are on the opposing side. So the nationalist China was Chinese trying to get rid of the communist China. The communist China wanted to consolidate its own power within China. So there's a lot of interesting thing going on. And the United States, of course, then also declared they're not going to support the communists. They will support the Chiang Kai-shek. But then at the same time, as you know, politics as it is, and they only support up to a certain point because of the relationship between the government, between the U.S. president, whoever, Truman and all that. So it's very intriguing as the relationship between Yunnan warlords, Sichuan, and others, and the central government. So there's a real tension. And so there's a lot of politics going on. So my father at the time, his 20s, and the relative to Long Yin's family, they have to support, help all the administrative things. So I was able to be exposed. So many of those interesting people. I happen to remember when you see the Flying Tigers wearing spiffy uniforms, young fighter pilots, you're impressed. And then all these things happen. So afterwards, after the Japanese surrendered, after the end of Second World War, my father went with Yunnan Wan, the warlord, Long Yun. Chiang Kai-shek removed him as the governor and basically took him to Chongqing and kind of imprisoned him there, give him a title, so just 软禁, so he loses all his power. And so my father went. So I had the chance to travel quite a bit, able to see Chongqing, Nanjing, Shanghai. So when we were young at that age, it was very impressionistic. So I remember a lot of those things going on. So the story goes forward. When the communists took over in 1949, so all our family had to leave Yunnan, Kunming. And when we left, basically the family talked about, we're just going to be temporarily leave and we'll be back. It's just a temporary thing. Strange enough, that's the lesson I learned. Things are happening at the moment. You don't realize what's going to happen. You figure, it's just bypassing. But it happens. And when it does, it's too late. You left everything behind, you escape your life, and you figure out, where do I go back? So as a result, we were fortunate enough, we were able to went to Hong Kong. And it's during that period when my father was still working for Long Yin in Nanjing. He did some business for Long Yin and flying from Shanghai to Hong Kong. And the plane he flew in was lost at sea. So I lost my father in 1947, 48. And so I was raised by my mother with my sister, who's 2 years older. So we went to Hong Kong. We didn't have anybody we know. It's a foreign land. We went to Hong Kong because my mother, basically, who has never worked a day of her life, she was a high school graduate in the old days. So she had to raise my sister and myself and put us in grade school. And then we have to finish grade school and went to high school. So when you're in a new place, you have no support system. You don't know anyone there. So we had to basically get adjusted. We're not even considered as a Hong Kong resident or Hong Kong citizen because Hong Kong is a British colony. So we're just basically a refugee. And so we have a Hong Kong identity card. That's it. So we lived, I worked, and I went to school. Some interesting stories, obviously, when you're from a distant place. But that's something funny. When I went to fourth grade, the teacher was talking about China. They said, they just happened to talk about Yunnan province. They said the people from Yunnan are very backward. She didn't know I was from Yunnan. So she said people go there, they have to carry a big stick because somebody tap you on the back. You don't know who's tapping you. Could be a big gorilla or something, a big bear. You just have to protect yourself. That's one story. So, I didn't see any of that stuff when I was living there. And then tell a new story, because we are from primitive land, right? There's a lot of minority in Yunnan province, as probably most of you know. And some of us actually have bones, tails on our back, tail. So we have an extra piece of bone in where our butt is. So when I went home, I told my mother, gee, do I have a tail? I want to feel it the way it is. So that's the reason why I still believe today I cannot sit still because I have an extra piece of bone, a tail in my back. But there was also a lot of interesting stories. But the point that I'll talk about this is I have to, like most of you, we have to know how to adjust, how to adapt, right, to the condition, to the place, to the culture, whatever we have in order to survive. And that's what we are faced with, and we were faced with. And hopefully we can do better. And another trick I use is we are supposed to recite. When you are in Chinese school system, I don't know whether you guys know that, you have to be able to recite. And you have to be able to recite in Cantonese at that time, right? Since I didn't really know how to speak Cantonese, I figured, well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to flunk, right? But the good thing is, so I told the teacher, I said, well, I don't know how to speak Cantonese that well. Can I recite in Mandarin? And the teacher didn't know anything about Mandarin, as you know, or maybe just enough to get by. So, okay, you can try to recite in Mandarin. And I really didn't know what the hell I was reading about. But I recite in such a way without any pause. She thought that I was doing very well. So she may hear one word or not hear the other word. But the way I continue is, wow, you did everything right, 100%. I got passed. So what I'm trying to say is we have to learn how to adjust, adapt, and to be flexible. And that's the skill I think I happen to learn. The reason I brought my upbringing is I met a lot of people from different provinces back where I was in Yunnan. Got to travel quite a bit to Shanghai, Nanjing. So I got to see other people, other things. So when I go to Hong Kong, I have to learn how to survive. So I was able to manage. And I was able to go to a very good high school. Those of you who might know Hong Kong a bit, I went to Diocesan Boys School, DBS. So that's why I learned my English. That's why I learned, again, another culture, which is very foreign to us. And so then I came to the United States and I have to make another adjustment in the foreign land. Also as a refugee, not even refugee. I just came as a student with no paper, no status, no nothing. And yeah, so I came here. And so I went to college and went to school and I graduated, as you probably know, from Michigan engineering. And so after I graduated, I came to work for Boeing, work on the airplanes, all the way from 707 to 747. I was on the first 747 we actually manufactured and almost bankrupted the Boeing company at that time because when the airplane rolled out, the economy just went down. Boeing cut their employee from 80,000 to 30,000. And there's a story about Seattle on the billboards. The last person leaves, turns off the light. So it's amazing because most people didn't leave. The people who did not leave, they stuck around. What did they do? They got into startups, entrepreneur, started their own business because they work for a technology company developing airplanes that requires a lot of technology component. So they learn how to start, how to survive. And then we have so many wonderful companies. I think the company that developed the defibrillator, the company that did the heart pacemaker, and the University of Washington had the first heart transplant. So all these are people who thrived, right, because of adversity, and they made it. And as a result, I think this mentality, this attitude of entrepreneurship and innovation continue to attract people. To me, that's the American spirit, right? The American, so we'll talk about that a little bit. It's part of the American dream. That's one of the reasons I came to the United States. It's the American dream. But when I came, though, one more addition, I didn't really think about, wow, I want to be a freer or have just and do all that. I'm looking for just opportunity. In Chinese, San Francisco is Gold Mountain, right? Jingshan. Before most of us thought in those old days, in the 50s, that's why I came, 58. We figured the land is full of gold. You just have to pick them up. But once I got here, no, that's not reality. You gotta work your butt off to make a buck. You have to work in the restaurant as a busboy, work in the kitchen, whatever you have to do. So it's not easy. But again, we have to learn how to adapt, how to make the best out of it. And so we're able to make that work.
I'm very curious. I mean, you covered a lot just now, and it's an incredible story. So, can you tell us a little bit about the difference in how you felt in terms of both culturally, but also opportunity, like you mentioned, arriving in Hong Kong for one, and then your journey to the States and how that was different?
Going to Hong Kong is a lot more challenging, more difficult because, I have to rely and depend on my mother, basically, right? And who really isn't trained and educated will be able to give us a life that give us the opportunity to succeed. And so it's just challenging. But in my case, because of her, we got to go to a real good school education. I want to give a plug to DBS. I don't know whether you guys know anybody from Dawson Boys School. It's a place of all diversities. We have teachers, all masters, all British masters, and they've gone through the Japanese imprisonment. So they've all gone through the challenging times. And they're all very dedicated people who went all the way for whatever reason it is. They went to Hong Kong to teach. So they have their own talent they brought to the table. And because of the Japanese invasion, most of the kids that went back to school have lost a couple of years. So they are older. And so the teachers treat them much more as adults, much more maturely. So the people I meet in school, many of them are people who come back after they suffer through the Japanese occupation. Some of them are Eurasians. They are the sons, DBS, and the kids of the mixed parents, whether it be British soldier or Chinese wife or whoever, whatever. And so the school, being a Church of England school, Christian school, one of their mission is to help these people, the Eurasians, because Eurasians are looked down, as you know, right? Being honest with you, Chinese, it's also very discriminating. You have to prove yourselves, and which is the right way in a way, but we do. But at the same time, these people are in unfortunate position, being married with a mixed family. The father passed away or disappeared or went back home, and they're stuck with these Eurasians, and they need support. So I met all these folks, and the master I meet, same thing. I have to deal with them. They are foreigners. They don't know me. They look at me probably just like another many people that they get used to. So I have to understand them and have to prove to them, and they appreciate that because they've seen the tough part of China and Chinese people, what they've gone through. So when they see you responding and respecting them, and they respect you in return, they treat us like adults. So a DBS experience taught me to be outspoken, to talk back. In Chinese education, you don't talk back, right? Teacher says what? You can't even raise your hand. You cannot speak and they tell you to. So in DBS, no. You have anything you want to say, any complaint, you can talk about it. And the teachers don't treat you very nicely. If they don't like you, they can beat you up. In British system, we have canes. If you don't behave, you go to the headmaster's office in the middle of the night, and you got cane. You have the choice to pick. His room, he's got thick, big canes and very thin canes. Most of the novices who don't know that, they choose the small ones. The small ones are the ones that hurt the most. You choose the big one. Anyway, so we learn all the things that is necessary for us to survive, adjust, adapt, and succeed. And that's the key. And to innovate, right? To take risk, to do things what we need to do. And I think this helps to be United States because America is where this are the characteristics of success. And so that helps me a lot. So it's a lot easier for me to integrate in terms of education, all that stuff. It's still tough because we have very limited choices, but it's no less than what I would have if I stayed in China or in Hong Kong, right? So it's an improvement, but it's not good enough. We need to ultimately achieve the American dream. And I believe what I'm saying is really not unique. That's why I don't really talk about too much, because every one of us, every one of your parents, if your parents came here, if you were born here, but your parents and your family, you all have a story, very similar story. May not be identical, may not be quite the same, but it's similar. You all gone through the same, right? That I just talked to you about me. I believe that's important to encourage all of us, all Chinese Americans, way back 400 years ago, 1882, Chinese Revolutionary Act, even before then, up to now, we have story to tell. The successes we have accumulated, your parents have. It's not necessarily have to be lots of money or high position, but it's the struggle we went through and the result they've brought with raising kids, with supporting this country, society. That's important. And I think we need to know that. We need to talk about that. And I use the example of Black Americans. They being discriminated for how many years? 400 some years. And even after 1962, I was here when the Civil Rights Act was passed. That's a big victory for them and for all minorities. In this country, we're all in the same boat. We all got lifted up. So we benefited. But it took them that long. How did it happen? It's because before then, they viewed themselves as nothing more than just being slave. They believed that they were born to be slave. And they believe their mental capacity is limited because that's what they have been taught about. That's why they have lived. They have never been exposed to anything that's different. They have no history. They have no name. Their names come from the masters. No names. Somebody give it to them. Until there's a book written called Roots by Alex Haley, and they made into a movie. Then when all Americans start seeing that movie, when the African Americans themselves, when they saw that movie, they suddenly realized, wow, we're not a bunch of slaves, born slaves. We're not a bunch of people who are not capable, who only knows how to mine gold and minerals and do menial jobs. They realized there's a history that historically, the Moors, the people in Africa, they are very important scholars, powerful people, politicians. They built empires. And then they were able to go back to Africa and they start looking up history. And history showing up. Say, well, yeah, this is indeed your family 500 years ago. They build up self-esteem, build up self-confidence. They know they are descendants from kings, emperors, and queens, and noble people, and smart mind and scientists. And with the Civil Rights Act, it opened up Equal Opportunity Act, affirmative action. So the opportunity in this country, that's so wonderful, becomes available. And they took advantage of the opportunities. And they now, presidents, generals, secretary of army, right? Civil servant, innovators, corporate CEOs. That's what happens when you give people opportunity, when you give them self-confidence. Our kids, our young people need to have the same idea. They need to hear the same stories, and they need to have the same aspirations that they can do it. Then they will make it work. If we just say, well, you're only good enough to be a coding expert, that doesn't get you beyond what you can do, what you're capable of doing, right? So I think that's story, history is very important.
Between 1967, when you first moved to Washington and became an engineer for Boeing.
Actually, I came to Washington in 62.
62, okay.
I came to Bellevue in 68.
Okay, I got it. And then you've been a stockbroker. You were a project manager at the city of Seattle. You were also in real estate. And so over the next 20 years, you really built out your career. And then in 1994, you decided to run for city council. I was wondering if you could walk us through how that evolution happened and why you decided to participate in government.
Because of my experience, as I just described to you in length, I've always feel that ask the question, why not? Instead of why. I see that, especially in high school in China, I was pretty lucky. I didn't really ask why not too much. And also in those environments, I just feel that that's the way it was. I was a poor, stateless person, widow mother, and what can we expect? I was very lucky to go to good school and be able to come to the United States. But when I'm here, I suddenly realize economic well-being is only a small element. I was not able to do a lot of things, which I'm going to tell you a little bit, because of our political influence. When I came here, the immigration law says doesn't allow Chinese to become Americans, naturalized. We know that. The law wasn't appealed. Chinese exclusion until 1963 or 4. I don't remember which way, or 5, somewhere around there. So that's after I came here. For 5 years, I cannot become a citizen. Okay, that doesn't make sense. Then when we could, they put us on quota. You know what means quota? Quota is based on the people who are in the United States when America become a country. How many people are living here? They assign proportional percentages. So there were 90% of people are allowed to come in. If you are given a, 200,000 a year quota to allow people to immigrate to the United States, 90% that goes to Europeans, go to British. Chinese, there were no Chinese around. The whole China, all Chinese in the country, we have 200 allowed. So it's impossible to come in based on quota. Not possible. So how do you become a citizen? You never become one. You have to be naturalized first. So what you do is you have to have a critical skill. Somebody has to sponsor you. And the Congress normally does that or did it every so often. They have people who apply for naturalization, not based on quota, because quota you have to wait forever or never be able to do it, but wait on your skill. And they put you on the waiting list. And the waiting list can last as long as 4, 5, 6 years. Okay, you have to be employed by somebody who are willing to sponsor you. And the only people that can sponsor is your engineer. They need engineers. You know why? Because John F. Kennedy said, let's go to the moon. Let's beat the Russians. So we spend all the money putting in the military, developing technology. And the people who need is engineers, electrical engineers. So I studied electrical engineer. I should be a hot commodity, right? Well, yeah, but I couldn't get a job because why? Because they need security clearance. As a foreign student, alien, they call us aliens. Don't forget, even today, they're still calling aliens. We're not from this country. We're not from this earth. These are words that mean a lot. These are messages that's planted in your head. That's the most dangerous brainwashing. It's through language. It tells you what you are, who you are. That doesn't change. So anyway, so when I applied for electrical engineering job, I couldn't get it. And the only job I got is working on commercial airplane division when Boeing, because they hire all the engineers to do all the space work, all the military work, all the security work. They have an engineer to do a commercial airplane. So I was able to get a job with Boeing. I would not probably even study engineering first. I wanted to study maybe something else. If you ask me now, if I knew then, I would probably want to study law, right? So I become a politician. But anyway, regardless, the point is we have to make choices. And I know what choices I have, which becomes open to me. I said, why? Anybody can, with the ability, can do this. And how come I cannot? People can qualify to do this. How come I'm not? I had experience when I looked for apartment when I was working for Boeing with my friend working for Boeing, Chinese Americans. They advertise in the newspaper, rent available apartment. Go there. The sign's out there in front. You knock on the door, they open the door, see Chinese. Sorry, it's rented. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, it's in the 60s. It's not that long ago. So all these things happening. So obviously, being what I have experienced with my previous, especially I think with DBS, I said, why not? Why am I? What can I do? What's the way to be adaptable? What's the way to be? How can we change it? And that's another dream of this country: is freedom, liberty, and justice for it. That means we can make changes. So I figure that politics ultimately is the place where you have the most influence, because this is a country of law. The Constitution, everything's based on law, and you can change it. How do you change it? It's through legal process, right? Legal process is through government legislators. They in the city, you have 7 council members. Takes 4 votes, 4 of us at any given time. We govern a city of whatever number it is. In Bellevue, 150,000. And we could be a city of 1 million. The money we have, the business we have, our budget in Bellevue is $1.2 billion a year. It's a lot of money. We control all that stuff. So it's powerful. So I figure, well, I can do all the things I want to do, but there's nothing more powerful, more influential to get into politics. So I decided it fits my thinking, my idea, and I had enough training. I don't mind out there mixing up with people. I don't mind there to know people, talk to people, speak out. So I decided I wanted to consider running for public office. And so I did. And also I learned that just incidentally, regardless, I probably would run anyway. When I was working as a stockbroker, I learned about human psychology, because the whole stock market economy is run by human emotion. Right? So I kind of can figure that out. That's important. So I learned a little bit about it. And from that, I learned that the 2 growing industry is in government, it will never get smaller because it will get bigger. So second, garbage will never get less. It will get more. So I went to work for Seattle Solar's utility. That's another lesson to be learned. When you do something right. You have to have a goal, right? And you have to work at it, to plan on, to work on it. A goal and a plan, the 2 things you might have to. So I figure the 2 biggest, never slowing down, is garbage and government. So if I work for the Seattle Solid Waste Utility, I work for government and work for garbage. So I'm in the right position. But so when I was working there, I realized in solid waste garbage, it's very political. It's all political. Mayors lost their jobs because the people's garbage were not cleaned up. And they lost their job in Seattle, that's the mayor recently. He lost their job because people's snow did not get cleared. Instead, his own house snow got cleared. People knew about it, and it became a scandal, and he lost his job. So everything's political and it's policy oriented. So I figured, well, that's where I can make difference. So I decided, let's try it, let's go for it. And as it turned out, I'm compatible, I enjoy it, I'm continuing doing it, and until I run out of challenges. But I don't think that would have happened.
Yeah, I'd love to hear the story. How did you first get into politics? I think we understand your motives and the skills that you had and why you went there, but I'd love to hear kind of your first steps getting into politics.
I always believe that whatever you want to do, whether it happens or not, depends a lot on timing. Chinese saying that 天时地利人和, right? 天 is the one we cannot determine. It's timing, right? In everything, it's that. Even if you pick the right stock, the right thing, everything. But if the timing is wrong, nothing will happen. So, 天时 will set that aside first. 地利人和, 人和 means people, means I want to do it. 人和 means we all are talents. We all can work together. We work as a team, individually, whatever. We have people, we have talents. 地利 means the right place. You're in the wrong place. If I like democracy, freedom, but if I'm in Russia, it's the wrong place. Or in China for that matter, right? But so finally it's timing. So I wanted to go into politics. I know why. So I'm here. 地利. So I had to look, it's the right place. It just happened. Bellevue is still relatively a small city. They have about, the time I ran, about what, 80,000 people. Now we have 150, growing. So it's changed. Smaller cities, easier. And I don't see the heated politics, the discrimination potentially, because it's a very highly educated community. It started with a bunch of professors at University of Washington want to get away from urban center. So they look for a place that's close by, that's nice. And they pick Bellevue. They all moved there. They built a community for 30 families. And they emphasize education. So they put money in school. In this area, schools are built on levy, special levy. The state provides a minimum amount, but that's not enough to cover anything, right? So the cities that have money, that are willing to spend the tax money on it, got to have good education. So the people here do, and we still do. We'll continue to do so. And then, of course, having good people living here, good jobs, and we are located right close to Boeing. Well, not really close, but it's close enough. Boeing engineers grew like crazy. The jet planes that set a new age for travel, for everything. So all the growth, all the people who are able to provide, want to spend money for education and public safety, they all come to Bellevue. So Bellevue keeps on growing. So for that reason, so we have good place. They are more acceptable, more accepting for me. I feel even the first time I came to Bellevue, I looked for a house to buy. It's very difficult. They still have some concerns. We were the first non-white family that moved into where I'm living now. Where I'm living now are 50% Chinese living here now in my neighborhood because of the best schools, the best environment. And so the point I'm making is, so the timing is good. I tried the first time I didn't get elected. I lost by 600 votes. Well, so I said, well, let's give it a shot. It's not too bad. The performance is pretty good. And I was involved with all the youth thing. My kids growing up, I work with them on volunteer, coach soccer, baseball, football, all that stuff. So people get to know me. And people are nice, as we mentioned before. If they're educated, they know what it takes to become successful. They respect you, right? If you show that your value, and I'm willing to put out, and they're willing to accept me. So it all worked. So that's why I decided, well, timing is right at that time. If I keep on running a few more times, if I don't get elected, maybe it's the wrong timing. You never know that for sure. But I want to do it, just my desire, and I have a plan. I got engaged, I involved with the Southern community, with Chinese community as well. And so I was able to get the support, the financing, the money. And it didn't take very much to run in the old days. It takes $10,000, $15,000 to run the campaign. Now it takes $200,000 to run the campaign. But it's just a combination of all that. So it worked out.
You became council, one of 7 since 1994. You're still in the city council today, but about 8 or so years into city council, you decided to become mayor. And during that time, 2012, Bellevue was one of the fastest growing economies with China and India, a lot of immigrants coming in, especially with all the tech companies coming into Bellevue, right? Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
That, I think, comes naturally. Used to be when people become successful in their ventures, starting with Bill Gates. They're successful and they get whatever talent they need, and they find the Seattle area as a place to retire, to scale down. So they want to live where their business is close to them, right? So they find this region and they have talents, right? Because Boeing technology, I mentioned about Boeing depression, and they came back and they're strong. And we are closer to China as well, the whole West Coast. Well, Seattle area is one day less in the distance between US and Asia. So it's a logical place. So what attracts people to come here? So it's the people. Company move where the employee goes, where they can find an employee, not necessarily employee goes. I'm not quite sure which comes first, but wherever they can find employees. Let's see. Education is very important. And Bellevue has really very high reputation in education. And one thing is that when they graduate, they always go on to somewhere else to go to college or the Ivy League schools, California, Boston, wherever they go. And when they succeed, that usually is when they build their base. They seldom come back. And when they're successful, become multi-trillionaires or billionaires, then they will retire back to Seattle. So we don't hear a lot of noise about Seattle area. Bill Gates is not out there waving his flag. Jeff Bezos is not moving to Miami. So what keeps them there is the employees. People live there. They love to hear. Why? Because education, whatever, we made it happen. We have people who grow up here, people who have those values, who want their city elected officials represent those values, because ultimately the people runs the show, ideally. And it still does in many ways. We haven't changed so far yet, but it's kind of scary. We sometimes are concerned that maybe it's happening more probably than not, but we're not there. So the people still call the shop, and the people who are elected still share most of the same values and concerns because they came from here, okay? So what else attracts people here is we have a really good place because people living here now, business coming here. And we're economically viable. So we're doing business with everyone. They may not live here, but they know about us now. We're dealing with China, dealing with the rest of the world because of the technology we're involved in. Really, we're fortunate. We were in, I know, Internet of Things, IoT, before Microsoft built it up. And now we're in cloud, and it's big data. And that's going to be in the future. And the companies in those areas are all located here now. T-Mobile, right? Amazon, and they're here because the people are here. So now we are building those foundations. And Boeing still, luckily, they're still here, even though they're getting into a lot of trouble recently. But there's only that many aerospace companies. So I think if they smart up, I think they still would be okay. But the point is, this area is being recognized. As more people coming here, suddenly you find the place is beautiful. We're having more top-notch global amenities. The last 4 or 5 years, especially maybe the last 3 years, after the COVID, things are recovering. We're having so many new cuisines, restaurants. I went to Bellevue Square, if you haven't been there. Used to be the top 4 or 5 mall in the country. Now, I would imagine it's probably top 1 or 2 in the world. It's amazing. So what I'm trying to say is that people are discovering us. Before, people say Seattle, especially Bellevue, it's a best hit secret days. People don't know that. But now it's inevitable because you guys are coming knowing about us. And that's why I'm hearing my FF brothers coming interest. 15 years ago, who cares? Somebody in Bellevue? What is that? So before, when I have been here, people hop, jump. You go from San Francisco to Portland to Vancouver. That's it. Never stop in Seattle. But now Seattle is on the map. So we need to, however, continue. So they're discovering us. We have no flood. We have no storm. The worst thing we faced the last couple of weeks, we have big rain, cold, more rain. But that's it. In other places you watch on the map when they have weather report, it's hurricanes, earthquakes, flood. I mean, it's just amazing. We're very lucky. So with the people, with the place, now with the timing, depending on the economy, depending on the technology, depending on the rest of the world, right? If the world started to have a third world war, we don't know where we would be. If US-China relationship get worse, we don't know where we'll be. But the point is that the fundamentals are here. We got the right people, we have the right places, we have the right technology that help us to do more, do better, do more efficiently, effectively. And the key is we got to make sure that we have young people like you and your future generations will continue to have faith, have passion, have confidence that they can make us the place. We have the people. And if we have the time comes, eventually it will come. We always say in the Latin, carpe diem, right? Seize the moment. Opportunities, the moment comes around. It never stops. The question is, are we ready to seize it? Do you have confidence you can get it? Are you prepared to seize it? If you're not prepared, you don't even think about it, it will come, it will go.
You mentioned that when you first moved into Bellevue, you were the only Chinese American. By the time you became mayor, Bellevue was about 42% minority population. There were 84 languages spoken in Bellevue schools, and racial minorities accounted for more than half of the district's enrollment. This is maybe 10 years ago. And at the time, you were still really frustrated because you were the only minority elected leader. This 10 years ago. You originally came into politics because Chinese Americans didn't have a voice. You didn't have any opportunities. So you wanted to create those opportunities for the residents of Bellevue, representing them. And even though 10 years ago, there was such a big chunk of Bellevue that was minority, there still weren't being represented in city council and weren't represented in the city. And I know that you have a lot of thoughts when it comes to the American dream and a lot of thoughts when it comes to Chinese Americans and what role they play. So I was wondering if you could cover that.
Sure. Let's just go back a bit. We talk about, I want to catch up. One thing I missed is that my experience in my college years, going to Michigan and joining FF, it's a great, I would say, added value to me because FF is another separate group of people. It's almost very close, similar to my own experience in Hong Kong. We are good people who are willing to stand out, who are willing to work together, who are willing to be aspired to more things. And that's why I'm very proud. We have a brother that we live in the same dormitory, Bill Chen. He became a general. He was very responsible for ordnance during the first Desert Storm. And that's amazing. Who, as a Chinese general, not general yet at that time, but he's responsible to move the most important piece of any war is to get your weapons where you can use. And he did it. And now you can tell another brother, he's another immigrant from Shanghai to Hong Kong, but his family grew up and went to Michigan, and we kind of share our experiences together. And with the other FF brothers, in one or another, you go to New York, we have national reunions. It's amazing what people you meet. I got to meet people from MIT, Harvard, right? These are brains. I recognize I don't have a lot of those things, but they do. And they don't mind sharing it. They don't mind knowing people. They don't mind working together. That's the key. As a politician, that's what I pride of either. I'm probably one of the dumbest person around, but I'm smart enough to work and recognize who are the people that are capable and that you put them together. Since I'm on that subject, there's a book written called The Boys in the Boat about Washington's rowing. In 1936, they went to Olympics in Germany and they brought back gold medal. They started out with nothing. In the old days, in 1930s, all the boat rowing is on the East Coast. There's nothing on the West Coast. And Washington was nobody. And there's a second team, junior varsity. The coach assembled a team and told them that you have the potential, made a good selection. You can be the top of your bunch. And they work on, way through. They beat the varsity team. They went to East Coast. They beat all the rowing team from Cornell, Navy, Columbia, whatever they beat. And they went to Olympics and they beat the Germans. They beat Hitler. Jesse Owens was on the Olympic team in that year. So it's amazing stories. The motto, the story is when you work as a team, you have to be working, rowing together on the same page. You have to have a common goal. You cannot be off sync. Do the best to help the strong. That's the whole story. There's one segment. The strongest guy was frustrated about the weakest guy. He's going to quit. He said, look, we didn't win because you're not working hard. Because the weakest guy, not because he has a cold, didn't feel well. but he still was rowing. The coach said, we don't want that. It has to be all 8 people has to be rowing. So that's important. So the guy quit. He quit for a day. He said, no, I was wrong. So he joined the team and they won the Olympics. So that is a good story. So what I'm trying to say is we are people that are together on the team. We can influence everybody else. We can help everybody else as long as we build a similar goal. So we all have to have our own goal. So you asked me the question, what do I think that we still need to accomplish? We have done so. And each of us have different goals. Okay, so that's the American dream. American dream on the surface is freedom, liberty, and justice for all. We all have the same opportunities, but we have different capabilities. Okay, but we just have to recognize what we can do collectively and individually. So individually, I'm very blessed. I think I've done a lot of things that I have a wonderful family, wonderful wife that's put up with me in politics. It's very important to have a real understanding spouse that can support you, like in anything you do, right? Because it's teamwork. And I have 2 kids and with 3 grandkids. So they're all wonderful people. So, I mean, what else do I need, right? I have a comfortable home and I live in a nice place. However, I have a bigger goal. You have to have a vision, right? People used to say, I have a friend that told me, everybody should have a dream. But dream without action is only a dream. Nothing happened. A dream must have action. Dream with action is leadership. You actually do something, show people what you're doing, and inspiring them to do what you want to do, and you accomplish. And sometimes dream, I use the word fulfillment. What's my American dream? When I first came here, I just want to be able to live a comfortable life, right? That's my dream. But now once I got to America, I said, hey, no, I got to be equal to all these other people. Now I still want to be equal. We're way short of that. So that is still my unfulfilled dream. But each of us, however, have our own. But to get to an ultimate dream, you have to do it step by step. Just being prudent, being practical. If you take a major jump, well, if you're Superman, maybe you could, but Superman may have a different vision. Maybe a jump is not good enough. He wants one jump to Mars. We're getting to Mars now, so maybe it's not my goal to get to the Mars because I think we're getting there. I don't need to have a direct hand in that. But to me, I think we still want to be visible. We want to have influence. We want to have ultimately equal influence. This is just being fair. I mean, ideally, I would like to have all power. I like to be the emperor. I like all the power in here. But on the other hand, I don't think that's probably the right thing to do, right? And probably not possible. And because I don't think it's the right thing to do, I probably won't work very hard to push that. And I'm sure there are a lot of other people who would not agree to that. Because people that is going to be controlled by you probably will think differently. So I think the fairest thing to do is we all have to be equal, right? And we all have the opportunity to get there. But now I think there's still enough individual people, for whatever reason. I don't think that they're naturally born to be racial or biased. Some differences. It's just being uncomfortable. But when you ask them to make choices, they will make it just because of their human natural reaction. Even your own kids. I like one kid better than the other one today. I like the other one better than the other one the next day. So I have preferences. My grandkids same way. But the point is that we are not doing it on the basis of unreasonable, arbitrary decision. We were based on some reasonable values and standards. And I think that's what we need to do. And now standards and values are not applied equally. They're not. Even in the council, even choices. I should have been elected mayor earlier than I was. But it's hard because you're elected by your colleagues and you need 4 votes. I'm 1 vote, but I have 3 other votes I don't get. And they got their own personal reasons, whatever it is. Some may be ignorance. Some may be their own experience. Some may be really just racial, right? You don't know that. But regardless, I want to be sure that we overcome those values, those reasons that's not right. Educate people. That's why I want to tell stories about Chinese Americans, because I think by and large, if we tell enough stories, if we remind them that if they do certain things, it's not going to be the right thing to do based on our articulated value, which nobody can deny, I guess, right? And the only reason they don't deny is because we talk about it. If you don't talk about it, you never know what they believe. You don't know why, and you never learn, right? Ignorance doesn't help you, doesn't teach you. It's knowledge that helps you to learn more, and do better things. So I think we need to continue doing that. Another example is every time you do things, you work with a group of people, there's always differences, but it depends on individual, whether it's more or less. It's what you want, but you have to be able to have the opportunity to talk about it and to be listened to. And then if they agree with you, that's good. And maybe other people need to understand why, because it's based on good reasons. If they disagree with you, they need to be able to articulate it. You need to be able to have a conversation. So ultimately, we all know through knowledge, through the value we establish, if we use Constitution as the law, as the basis, we need to make sure it's consistent with that. But even Constitution, I believe, laws are subjected to change as well. It is, because we have new community now, we have new values. When Constitution was made, there was only, 13 colonies, 13 states, and they have made a bunch of people who don't understand us, who have no clue who we are. They make laws that's adverse to us. So now we have a new community. We need to be looking at those things and update it with a new set of eyes and with a new voice, with new people at the table. I use another example. The person that invented basketball, you think the guy is short like us? I don't know how tall. Andrew looks pretty tall. I don't know how tall he got. But so it's invented by somebody who's tall so that he can dump the basketball. The short guy is going to have a disfavor, right? The only short guy that did well is talking about the Boston Celtic. What his name is? Oh, he's a great basketball player. Boston Celtic. Anyway, so if I were to invent the game as a short guy, I'm not that short. I'm 5'7", 5'8". But if I'm a 5-foot guy, I would invent the basketball to be 2 feet tall because I would be hovering right on top of it. The tall guys can't even bend down. By the time they bend down, I already put in 3 shots. So it depends on who invents the game. We need to be at the table when they invent the game, right? That's what I want to say. So people always say, if you're not at the table, you are on the menu. So we got to be at the table.
Right.
Look at the Congress. We have 100 congressmen, senators.
Right.
Another thing, when I'm moving forward, that's what concerns me. 67 years ago, we have a senator from Hawaii, Hiram Fong. But we don't have any Chinese senator anymore. That's it. Why not? You guys are smarter, greater, more educated. We should be, right? So this is an example. But we need to, and just continue to do so.
Yeah, so speaking of change, so I believe you said you were elected to city council in 94?
Yes.
Is that right? So this is like 30 years of you in politics.
30
right?
years, yes.
So I'm curious if you can give us like examples of change that you affected that you're very proud of during that time. And
Sure.
Let's start there, because then I'd love to hear about changes that you wish you could have pushed, but wasn't able to as well. But yeah, what was something that you were very proud of?
Being the first Chinese American, it has given the community, both the majority community and other minority community, that I am there to represent them. That's very important. Already visible. There's no more visibility than you are being there. That's important. They have to treat me differently. They do. When I was a Boeing engineer, nobody knows me. I walk in the room with Boeing CEO and managers, not even CEO, just some guy. Well, I'm just a little guy. They don't even stand up. They don't even know who I was. But when I got elected, I walk into the room with CEOs. They all stand up. Hi, Councilmember Lee. That's a big deal. But the question is, what do I do to enhance it, to make it even more so, right? And that's where the unfulfillment is. We finally got one Chinese American. We have one appointed, actually, but didn't last very long. Again, unfortunately, for whatever reason. No blame on anyone, but it's just a fact, and we need to make sure we do better. That's one. Two, real things. When newspaper covered say that if there's a burglary in our city, it's occupied by immigrant family. I don't know whether it's Chinese or not. And the burglary is at large. I mean, the burglar or whoever, the break-in. So I called the police chief. The police made that announcement, the police press release. I said, why do you associate a crime with immigrant and Chinese? You're not talking about the criminal. The first thing you need to do is describe the criminal. They go get the guy. Anybody can be victimized, not just because he's an immigrant Chinese. Somehow they do not associate negative always with us. Nowadays it is. Anything that's bad happening, it must be somebody. No, it's the victim. Go get the guy who is the perpetrator. So they never mentioned, they changed their press release. I mean, these are little things, but little things makes a big difference. That's what I was saying. The message is your mind. If you think in your mind, that's the one that stuck the most. That's the one the most hideous. Because if it's obvious, you can correct it. And people may not believe it. But if it's subconscious, people remember. Somehow they see, whoa, I have a Chinese neighbor now. I better watch that people don't come to burglarize me. It's not logical. It's not right. Shouldn't be publicizing that, right? You go, oh, gee, people are coming to my neighborhood. That's why we don't get to buy a house here in the early 60s, because the Chinese move in. It's going to be bad. Blacks move in. That's why the redlining, right? That's not right. Right? So it depends on situations. They got to be sensitive. And I'm being there makes them sensitive. Okay? And that's in general. Really, whatever we did, to me, the way we run the city council. Second, I'm a fiscal hawk. That's my reputation for 30 years. People continually like me back. When I campaign, my campaign is very simple. Fiscal responsibility. That's it. Safe community, right? Good education. That's it. And we want to keep our community that way. It's simple. Fiscal hawk. When I went to the council, timing, we happened to have 3 other people, 2 new council members, 2 more existing ones. We look at our first budget I was looking at. The budget had 14 open positions unfilled. I said, what are these positions there for? And a colleague of mine, they said, well, they have money. They don't know how to spend. They raise taxes every year automatically. The law allows them to do that. Every year they can raise 6%. So it doubles the tax in 10 years. 11 years. Then what are you going to do with the money? If you don't need it, number 1, don't tax it. Number 2, return it to the people. Let them spend it. It's their money. So 4 of us prevailed. So we did not raise tax for the next 10 years. Tax increase. We still raise tax, but we did not increase. So we get rid of the 14 open positions sitting there to put the money there as a cushion. That doesn't make sense. That means if somebody's itchy finger, right? The next council, they can spend all the money they want to because money's there. You know, everybody has itchy finger. Most of us do. So don't give them money when they don't need it. Be responsible. That's why fiscal responsibility, that's important. And safety is obviously important. We value our police. Put money where mouth is. I always support them, go to the events. So that helps. And in the old days, I was in Seattle during the 60s, during the Black riots. I was driving through a blinking light, just a crosswalk. Nobody's watching. I went through it. Suddenly, siren comes on. The red light started to turn. So I stopped my car. Lucky I didn't go out. I sat in my car. I rolled down the window. A cop was there with his shotgun pointing at me. I said, holy smoke. Right? That's not good policing. In Bellevue, it never happens. They stop my car. They come to my car, politely say, hey, they recognize me now. Say, Mr. Lee. So when they see other people driving looking like me, they're not going to come up with a shotgun and shoot me. They're going to say, well, one of you is my boss. I better behave, right? That's important. So do other people. I hope they appreciate me. When they elect me by 8 times, I think they know I'm doing something for them. I think that's important. So these are little things, but it's important. Big things, we have high rises. We have one high-rise building, packed car, the tallest building in town. Now we have high rise every day. We have a Chinese American from San Francisco that actually bought the piece of land at the best location in the town, in the city, right next to the Amazon building, 60-story. That's great. I suggest to him, we should call that building Cloud Capital of the world, because cloud computing that would attract people to come to Bellevue. That would attract companies to come to Bellevue. That makes sense because that's where talents are. When people come to visit Bellevue, hey, it's not a bad place. Like FF Brothers, hey, not bad. We can have good Chinese food. We can go to here. They can go someplace to have some fun. Before, they never was able to do that, right? You just chop suey and this and that. What's there to see? But now we have. So anyway, what I'm pointing out is his building is now called Cloud View. Cloud View. So he understands the importance of words, messages, right? That's important. But unfortunately, the economy is softening a bit. Office space is glut. And so they're slowing down the development. Even Amazon is slowing down. Microsoft's moved back to Redmond headquarters. So we got to be smart, be careful. And that's why my message is still right. Fiscal prudence, even though at least they still believe in that. So other things, it's not our regional presence. That's big. My global presence, I don't know how much difference did I make, but I know that when I was the mayor, I make sure we got the Mahatma Gandhi statue coming to Bellevue. It's located in the Bellevue Public Library. And so we try to compete for the consulate general. Consulate at that time was the mayor deciding to site it either in Atlanta or in Seattle area. we want them to come to Bellevue area. But Seattle area is fine because we recognize if it's in Seattle, it has advantages. It's got to be big draw. So we cannot compete with Atlanta. So Atlanta win it. We cannot help it. But same time, when I was doing that, I was building a relationship with the Indian entrepreneurs, Indian CEOs who have conquered technology, and they still have the company in our city. So they're good stories. But also there are some misses. Obviously, they are there. We lost Expedia, maybe something we cannot do very much about because we don't have much space. Expedia's CEO want to have built a big campus. We don't have the land. So he moved to Seattle somewhere, which is a lousy place because it doesn't have transportation system, doesn't support. Now, if in Seattle, you're not really in a real favorable spot, but it's okay. The time will come back and so on. But the point is, I was able to do that. And then when U.S.-China is working together, GIX came to Bellevue, the joint venture of Tsinghua University and University of Washington. And it didn't work out for many reasons. I don't need to go into detail. What else? Right now, we mentioned India is finding all the technology company here. And so I'm pushing on one thing, okay, which I hope will happen. When GIS came, I think it had to do with me also, because at that time, the president of Washington, he originally came from Salt Lake City. So as I mentioned, the mentality of Seattle is very provincial. Seattle is really provincial. It deserves to be the backward place of the country. People don't know Seattle. They pass through because people think small. But this outside person, so it's always nice to have somebody from outside, from New York, from San Francisco, from Chicago, who say, hey, your city can potentially be big. We don't have people that come in to say that. Okay, and the people who live here who retired don't say that. Who has the means to do it? We have more, not more. I don't know whether we have more, but we have lots of multi-billionaires here. But none of them are really pushing, promoting this area, right? You guys know that. So it's good to have a perspective from outside so that you have some that can do some convincing. But sometimes we don't pay them enough. They don't see that easy pick off the tree. So it's hard to get them unless they really are from here, convinced they want to do something. So I'm working on that yet. I'm not giving up. So when the president of UW came, he actually met with me. He said, well, growth in this region is from the east side. So University of Washington need to have a presence on the east side. They have a UW Seattle, UW Tacoma, they have a UW Basel. We need to have a presence in Bellevue. So that's why in GIS, when it was considered between China, Tsinghua, and UW, they decided to locate at Bellevue. That makes sense because Microsoft got in. Microsoft, Steve Ballmer said they would give $20 million to build the facility, but that's all they would do, nothing more. Put Steve Ballmer's name on the building. So as a result, it's up to the Tsinghua and UW to work toward making it work. And it never happened, never took place because UW is a public school. So as compared to all the top school we're talking about, Stanford, Harvard, MIT, Carnegie Mellon, Caltech, they're all privately funded. So there's plenty of money to support the excellence. For a public institution, you cannot support excellence. You aim for mediocrity in the middle because it's up to the government to tell you where the money goes. So the top talents don't count. So we are missing that. Anyway, so that's the accomplishment I did. And Chinese, I know. That's why our neighborhood is 50% Chinese living here. I know Chinese coming, they flew out of Seattle, most of them, when they come to the United States. What they do is the custom is they come in, they land in San Francisco, and they fly around, they pick up a few spots. Most of them probably will stay in California. And some of them will just, maybe they like, well, East Coast, maybe Boston or maybe Florida, I don't know. Then they end up in Seattle before they go home. When they fly to Seattle, suddenly they say, on the airplane, they say, wow, what a beautiful city. When they stop here, they know somebody, they look up. Somebody say, hey, come to visit us. I'll host you for a day. Then we're going to see you. Wow, mega mansion for under $1 million. And a good school for your kids to go to. Free. And they can go to all the Ivy League schools. So before they leave, what do you think they did? They put $1 million, buy a house, and they go home. That's happened. And I meet some of these folks. Because when they come, they start learning, wow, that's the mayor who's Chinese. Wow, it can't be that bad, right? So I got to meet some of them. The words get around. So that helps. I don't take all the credit. No way. I never take credits. But I'm just, again, telling stories. That's why storytelling is so important. Tell stories.
You mentioned that as Chinese Americans, we haven't really moved forward in terms of political power. Could you help us identify why that's maybe happening?
Yes, yes. I've been working the last dozen years. That's why there's so many intangibles I just mentioned. As the mayor, people come knocking on my doors. High school kids, hey, you're a Chinese mayor. I'm from a Chinese family. And I'm from an immigrant. You're an immigrant. I'm an immigrant family. What can we learn from you? We want to know you. I said, okay. So I interview a couple of them, and they follow me 2-3 years. Then they go to college. You know what college those kids go to? Harvard, Yale, MIT, Chicago, Stanford. That's where they go. Is it my credit? I don't know. But that means something, right? The reason why they don't go far is because, so I learn from them. I see them. Even when they go to best colleges, the culture has conditioned them to know 满足, how much is enough. The Chinese teaching is 满足. Don't ask for much. Be satisfied. Don't open your mouth until somebody talk to you. Don't get anybody mad. How can you change? How can you become an entrepreneur? It's hard, right? And especially now with the attraction, you graduate from college, it's $150,000 a year. So why you bust your back and make almost nothing and do something that you don't know whether it's going to succeed or not, right? They learned that from grade school to high school because that's what they're focusing on is work on your own. Be the best you are, but don't give the other person the advantage. That's not good. See, Chinese excel in individual games. We excel in table tennis. We excel in tennis. We excel in volleyball. We excel in running, maybe, but we don't excel in team sport. Never. Because team sport requires working together, collaboration. I pick up your slack. You pick up my slack. When I'm not there, you are there to cover me. That's what teamwork is. That's what makes big success. That's what big company is. That's why Chinese are great in mom and pop businesses. We are wonderful. We succeed. We have generations of past generations, but we cannot grow more than outside of family. It's the difference. So we got to change that mindset. And I think we can change it because the younger people now are exposed. You guys are already a great model, great example. Imagine. But the key is don't lose track because ultimately you say, well, gee, I'm tired. I want to retire. So I don't want to work with my kids that much.
One last question that I have is the political environment between China and the US has drastically changed within the last 10 years, right? When you were mayor, there's a very positive relationship with China, and now things have turned to almost a Cold War. How do you feel about the impending conflict with China and how it might affect us?
I have to say, I can't do much about China. I don't know that much about it, and I have no influence, right? Because it's a different system altogether. That's not what I have lived and been. I have no influence. But I believe that Xi Jinping, the person that can make a big difference, that he can make a difference. And how can we influence him? Because if he doesn't realize he needs to depend on us, and then there's much we can do about, right? So I cannot talk about it. Hopefully he will recognize to be great, to be competitive, to even take over, lead, right? Eventually, right? Why not? Everybody wants to be the best. Unless you have the Chinese mentality, I just want to be the second, then we don't have to worry about China, right? But I think in this case, they are. And they're proven to be capable. So we need to make sure that their leadership realizes that. United States, however, we are a country that is of the people, for the people, by the people. So the people can influence them. And we are part of the people, right? We have to figure out how, through us, we can influence the other folks. If we can make the difference, if we can influence them, that means we'll be in the political position, right? It's chicken and egg together. And that affects the society, socially as well. Socially is connected because in the United States, politics is social. It is. So if we are able to show our value to the rest of the Americans, regardless of where they are, who they are, from whatever party, whatever community, if we believe in the true American value of freedom, liberty, justice for all, and opportunity, we got to do what I'm talking about. We got to work as a nation, right? Otherwise, we're going to have an emperor taking over, dictator. that would be not good. And I don't see that because we do have the ability to do it. The only thing is if we give it up, if we don't know, just like I was saying, when we left China, we thought we're going to leave for just 1 month, 1 year, then we'll be back. That's back old days. And we are in similar position now. If we say, oh, it will come and pass, we may not get back. We are on a slippery slope, right? So we need to start sometime today. Say, let's be doing the things. Step at a time, prove to the greater community that we can make a difference. We provide value, and our kids will be even better because they are smarter. They have all the tools. We teach them the right things. Because the interns I work with, they're all great. My first intern went to Yale. He wanted to go to Harvard, but he didn't get admitted. So he went to Yale. And from Yale, he was selected Rhodes Scholar, went to Cambridge for 2 years, and then applied for Harvard Law School and accepted. See, he had a vision, he has a dream, and he's a plan, and he made it, right? So now he's a lawyer. He's a lawyer here in Bellevue, and he's trying to be, obviously, make himself a great lawyer. But I told him, though, don't forget the ultimate goal is still to have influence, much bigger than being a partner of a law firm, no matter how much money you make. It's a lot more influential to be in government, break into politics. Imagine if we have, right now, U.S.-China relationship, it's not good because one thing, we don't have any Chinese expert anymore. In the old days, we have Chinese expert. Michigan has the most. Kissinger, he just passed away 100 years old. Who is there who knows China? Lee probably knows more about China than most of the cabinet members. Because you live in China, you live in Taipei, you live in Hong Kong, you speak the language, right? And I believe some of us can really provide value. But who is there to speak about U.S.-China relationship, about the insights, about the culture? How do we work together? Nobody. So how can we get anywhere? So we need to make ourselves known, have a position. Right? If some miraculous I become the president of the United States, the first person I'll appoint is I'm going to appoint a Chinese American as the Secretary of State. Right? Come on. That's the biggest competitors and also the biggest collaborator we have in the world. US, China, we are running the world. The Russia now is disappearing. Russia's, who else is there? Britain, France? No, they're nowhere near close. Who are there? It's US and China. Isn't that obvious? But what are we doing? We don't have any talent? Of course we do. We are our own limit. People use the word glass ceiling. I said, no, it's not glass ceiling. Glass ceiling has been broken a long time ago. The government laws has removed glass ceiling. It's the glass wall we're building for ourselves. We are building our own walls. They all understand that. They all say yes. But unfortunately, once they get into real life, the real life is so tempting. Today, 150,000 a year. Tomorrow, if they join a startup, somebody else initiated, and they do some work for them, they get 1,000 shares of the stock. Immediately, they become a billionaire. So what's it? So that's it. That's the problem. No, that's not enough. It's just money. Money doesn't do anything. It's just a number. I can write them a check for $1 trillion anytime, but it doesn't do. They can't even use it. They can't even spend it. But they need to understand, and they have lots of pressure, lots of influence by everybody else, by their families, by their friends. They all say, gee, how come you're so dumb? You pass up easy money. You pass up opportunity to become a billionaire. And instead you go trying to serve other people to get in a position to do something good. People may not even appreciate. That's not good. We got to do it. So that's my spiel. And some of these kids are so brilliant. I wish every one of them would be inspired. Inspiring is no longer that important. To be helped, to be nurtured, to be guided by people like you, like me, right? Like FF, that should be, to me, political empowerment or engagement. I don't even want to use the empower because power scares people, right? So being in politics, you have to learn how to use the right messages. So if you say empowerment, that's not good. Engagement. If we can get Chinese American to engage, we can be very powerful.
On that note, is there anything else that you would want to tell the audience before we close this out?
Well, one thing is that we have to be patient and have to not give up. I believe same thing with politics, very similar to entrepreneurship. You have a passion for something, okay? And you commit yourself to it, right? I mean, I committed 30 years of my life and more than that, actually, before I get to the position I was in, you got to spend more time. And and never give up, right? That's the element of being successful entrepreneur. Passion, commit, don't give up. However, it doesn't mean that you have to be stupid. You have to be smart, be flexible, be smart, be wise. That's why I have my WeChat, if you're interested. It's Wise Man. No, it's not wise man. It's a wise guy. Because you have to be in America. You cannot be so obvious. That's against the messaging. You have to learn. It's culture. And if I'm a wise guy, people say, yeah, of course you're a wise guy. It's deprecating. But in fact, that's true meaning in it, right? Wise guy. So to be wise, you need to know when to do what, when to change, when to be flexible. Okay. So you continue and you have a goal, a target. So you know you're making progress. You know you're meeting your immediate goal target. So you move on. And then same time when you do that, you are letting other people to join you in the process. See? So that they have the freedom. Now it becomes a team. Now it becomes the boys in the boat. Now you move on. And that's how you start a movement. Let me just finish up by this. When you see a picture in the park with a couple of families sitting around, picnicking, kids, okay, everybody's having a good time in a sunny day. Some guy stood up and started to make funny movement, making funny gestures, doing a few funny steps, okay, and nobody pay attention. The guy keep on doing it, keep on doing it, keep on doing it. Pretty soon, another person got up, hey, let's start to do the same thing, simulate, right? Pretty soon, a lot of people get up there. Pretty soon, everybody in the park is doing it. Pretty soon, people from other places start driving to see, what are you guys doing? They all start. That's how I think we can start a movement. But it takes one with the passion, willing to be patient, stick it through, commit to it, right? And then things will happen. And again, you have to be smart enough and to be able to be nimble, flexible, that it is the right thing, right? If you just start something and bad things happen, you should be smart enough to say, hey, go something else, right? So I hope I shared this with you, and I hope it will give you some food for thought. I appreciate everybody who listening, especially my FF brothers, Andrew, Lee, and Will. Thank you for doing this. And I think if we do more of this, getting more people talking about, another thing I think is important, focus. Oftentimes, we have so many talents, we tend to not focus, and we tend to cancel out each other, and we don't have the strength because we're still a very small minority. So in order to make a bigger difference, we have to focus. I'm trying to focus on having each of you, every Chinese American family I know, talking to the kids and grown-ups. I would like to have each of you tell your story. And then we will connect all these stories together. We'll have a story. We start a movement. We have 1,000 stories, 10,000 stories. And people can see, wow, that some of them are very similar, good. Some are maybe not, but stand out. Some are, hey, makes sense. I think this will start a movement. And when you have a movement, people will be attracted to it. What we do is history, but offered in a way that's educational, that's realistic, that people appreciate because they share the same experience we share. And we tell them that we share the same experience they share. I think these are the stories we need to tell. And we have also other stories that are not being told, but it's there. We need to look into. That's the Chinese. His name is Tyler Wang, and he died when he was 105 or something. He's a cartoonist. He did the first cartoon for Walt Disney production. The cartoon is, can you guess what it is from Disney production cartoon?
No.
Most of you may have seen it. Bambi. You heard of the cartoon Bambi?
Yeah.
See, you're nodding your head. Used to be when you make cartoon, you make thousands of pages of illustration, right, to make one scene. And he did the whole movie. And that started Disney Productions cartoon. And then he was never acknowledged in the movie. Never. His father was immigrant, and his father took him here, and he went to Angel Island. He sat there for how many months? And he came out, he worked in the restaurant, he did all this, went to the lousiest public school there is, but he has a talent in drawing, graphics. After the cartoon, he worked for movie studios. When you do a movie, the director has to know a scene, right? You don't just shoot a scene. You have to design a scene. So how do you get the idea what the scene looks like? An illustrator draw up the scene. And he did all the scenes for wonderful movie. The movie Bullet. He did a lot of those great movies people can recognize. But his name is only included as one of the illustrators. But now, his colleagues who were working with him at the time, younger, they all now speaking out for him. Wow, what a talent. Those stories need to be told. That's what I'm talking about, right? We have lots of stories.
Conrad, thank you so much for your time. Your story is actually quite incredible.
Thank you. But you all have that. You don't know that yet until you start talking to your parents. You never know. You'll find out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we should be proud of each of us, each our heritage, each where we come from, and each of us what you have accomplished. You will be in the future. So I would love to have you guys here. We're thinking, how do we set up a British Columbia, Washington State chapter or something, Northwest chapter, so that you guys can come and visit us, so we can come visit you guys.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Thank you so much for listening until the end. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It'll help more people like you find us. You can find more about us on wild.show, WLD.SHOW. Please subscribe to our newsletter or DM us on Twitter. We'd love to get to know you.